All right, it is linking up. Looks like we're good to go. Let me make sure and say good day, as I always do. All right, if you can. Linking in real time. If you can't, looks like we're good to go. Let me make sure and say good day, so that we can get more reach and bring more people into the fold, and not the colloquial fold of corruption and status quo, but the more apt and viable fold of enlightenment and togetherness and unity and solidarity and all those things. So the statements that I made 30 seconds prior to actually going and integrating with YouTube, for those of you who are kind of picking up or will pick up at this moment, basically I just said welcome, and as committed, I am going live today. We're going to take a bit of a hiatus, a caveat, a pause for the cause, all those things, so that we can actually address some of the other issues, right, that are going on. And evidently also here in this state, as well as many other states, the restrictions have been brought back. We're going to pull up some of this information in real time, see if we can find any additional information. I'm going to specifically look for North Carolina because, of course, that's the state I live in. And I suggest that you use the same process that I use, which I recommend to everyone in the community, anyone who ever asks me, what are my thoughts, what are my recommendations on pandemic issues, whether they're ancillary or direct. And it is always the same, that you need to get it from the direct government source. I know that we are inclined to follow YouTubers who are covering the current issues. In fact, also myself, right? But you need to make sure that at the very least, the individuals who you are following on YouTube, including myself, please follow, subscribe, like, share, all right? Including myself, that you are actually verifying that they are verifying the information that they are effectually regurgitating, sharing with you, right? It needs to be legitimate information and not disinformation. And we're also going to cover that term, that nomenclature, that, colloquialism. It's become a colloquialism. And I'm going to explain how very dangerous even the lay public or lay persons is equally damaging or equally perpetrating or further perpetuating the disinformation that we are trying to get away from. Okay, so myself, that I'm in law school, so there's a standard for me that I must follow, especially if I am seeking to become licensed one day. And that's a process. I've got many other steps to go through. I'm technically a 2L rising 3L. So I finished my 2L, but I've got some requirements that I must meet to continue on with my 3L, but I'm a 3L student, if you will, okay? And that process leads to a measure of my character. They will vet my character. And unfortunately and fortunately, social media will also come into play for those things. It won't be the only thing. You don't have to be this perfect human being to be a lawyer. Evidently, we know that, right? We see what we see out in the world, but all of these things matter. So there's a standard that I must follow. There's also a standard that I must follow as a PhD ABD. So, and some of you already know this story. You've heard me speak on this. I am all but dissertation, right? And as a scientist, we have a great responsibility. Now, do we sign a literal oath of office? No, but it is inherent and it is expressed in the over and undertone of the field of science. and that it should be in Tigress, that our recommendations should be in Tigress, that our research, now the research does undergo very strict standards, and there's a standardization board that, that governs the ethics and the research methodology. In fact, most of you are at least aware of the fact that we must get our research reviewed and then approved by specific boards, even at the academic level, which is, of course, the International Research Board. There's a whole process, honey, a whole process. So you can generally trust, and I use that word very loosely, because I believe that trust is established over time and experience. So you got that interaction, that engagement, right? I would hope that having engaged me, especially those who have engaged me directly, and if you're engaging me indirectly through this medium, right, that is the World Wide Web, then I know that I have demonstrated that I am trustworthy, right? Okay. However, and that's even with the, YouTube, they got to get themselves together. I've already given them legal notice. I'm just, I'm a real patient and very reasonable person. So I'm giving them some time to, come around and get it together, and really, accept and acknowledge the express fact that they don't qualify to vet PhD, ABD folk. They don't qualify to vet PhDs. They don't qualify. That's left to our field of study. Yeah. Okay. So, and I'm referring to that one video that was removed, through which, and I will take time to say, let's start with let me stop. Let me rewind real quick. Let's start with the affirmation. May I further enlarge and our collective and individual understanding on the topics that we will discuss, and our enlightenment altogether, our solidarity, our unity, and may I not cause further divide. Okay, so what I was referring to is the video that YouTube removed. I've only had one video removed, and ironically enough, I first went through their online steps, through your YouTube portal, your account portal, to dispute the removal. And they came back with the same answer saying, okay, no, we're going to keep it removed. And so then I said, because again, I'm reasonable. I don't mind, I won't just lead with, okay, the Tigress litigator. I won't lead with that, because when we get into court, it's different. So I encourage people to, resolve your conflict with me. That's the best way to do it. So anyway, I then wrote to them, and it was a legal notice. At the very least, it was had a legal under and overtone. Okay, and so they responded, but it was a very passive aggressive or evasive response. So they changed the violation to a warning. No, you're not going to warn me on information that I have shared that, mind you, is from verified, vetted, peer-reviewed research articles from scholarly journals from my field, because I do have expertise, conferred, so it's vetted and conferred expertise in my field, which inseparably entails microbiology, and specifically bacteria, the bacteria that would be of interest when I make recommendations or I share with you the differences between viruses and bacteria. Do you understand? And also having not only my academic degrees, literally. So, you know, my BS, my MS, and my PhD ABD, which is, you know, underway. I also have intermediate, so the undergraduate level of waste management institute certificate. And I now qualify for the Advanced Waste Management Institute certificate, which of course I cannot actually receive in my hand until I graduate with my PhD, but I've already completed all of the requirements for that certification and my hazmat certification, which is all core to my OSHA background as well. And that's PPE, friends. That's personal protective equipment. And that's what we're talking about when we're talking about masks, right? And remember, I was the one that said, put your mask on and keep your damn mask on and keep it on until you see me take it off all day. If you see me outside all day long with no mask, honey, you all right. You're going to be all right. But like I said, make sure that they didn't kidnap my beautiful black ass, right? And they're pushing this clone of me out there in the world. Just check with me. Ask me a couple of questions. You know how I am. You'll be able to figure out if it's a real me or not. I guarantee you that much, okay? All right, because you can't duplicate all of this. You can't duplicate all of this. Not all of this, okay? You can try. You can try and, you know, imitate, but you can't duplicate all of this. You'll be able to know it's not me. But nonetheless, the point that I'm making here is that it was grossly inappropriate for them to remove my video because, number one, again, the information that I shared with you was verified. It was from verified resources or sources rather, and it's also core to my expertise. So I didn't need to confer with anyone because it is my expertise, my vetted and conferred expertise that I know like the back of my hand. And then telling you, recommending to you that you see your doctor. When no one else has been saying this, now everyone is on the bandwagon, but I have been saying this from the beginning. I would not recommend a vaccine to anyone that I have not observed and examined directly. And I have no medical license to do so. So I stay in my lane. I have an extreme level of expertise as it relates to holistic medicine. And I have worked with my own physicians and other physicians to care for not only myself and my son, my mother and other family members as it relates to their diagnosis and treatment for whatever conditions were at issue. I've done that successfully for years. And there are physicians that can vouch, quote unquote, for me in that very same regard, even as it relates to our current conditions that have been diagnosed, eosinophilic esophagitis for my son and eosinophilic asthma for myself. Do I have asthma? No. Some of you, I've had this conversation with you before, and this is something that I actually assisted my doctor, wonderful doctor, in properly diagnosing my particular condition, okay? And now that information is being used, even as recent as last week, in emails that they've sent out to individuals so that they realize you may not have traditional asthma. You may have eosinophilic asthma instead. Please see us if you have these symptoms. So I'm lending my support to the scientific community, the scientific research, the furtherance thereof in not only my personal life, but my professional life as well, okay? These are the individuals that you need to follow, like myself, who are doing these things. In fact, I'm going to do a shout out to Dr. Sunil Dan, who has equally, and I'm very, very impressed by the fact that, remember, I've made some statements that, and I've made them very straightly, that what? And you've seen them, I posted them. When CNN was, highlighting all of these internists or an internal medicine doctor, And I was very, very express in my aversion to that. Most internists do not qualify to make recommendations in the field of virology. That's straightforward, and I won't backtrack on that. But what I will do is, because a lot of those internists, they show that they do not qualify to make recommendations in that arena. We are scientists. We are not omnipotent. We are not all-knowing. We have our specialization and our expertise. And yes, our science, typically, as I've explained to you before, typically for scientists, whatever their specialization is, that core scope of study, right? It normally entails several sciences, right? Several different hard sciences or physical sciences like mine. So my specialization technically, in one word, is phytoremediation. What does it mean, Tigress? Because we heard you say you're a wetland scientist. Okay, phyto, plant, remediation, fix, right? My study is core to using wetland plants, hydrophytes, to remedy waste, pollution, nuclear waste, agricultural waste, right? And that entails several sciences: hydrology, microbiology, biochemistry, soil science, plant science, specifically wetland science. You get it? And this is where you have the crossover information for virology, as I've explained to you, motility, because I chimed in, if you remember very specifically, and if this was going to be an edited video, this is where I would input the video where I speak on the fact, or excuse me, where I speak on the conspiracy theory that was circulating, that everyone believed that COVID-19 was a bacteria. I'm doing that thing. I'm sounding like Medea today. The bacteria, right? That the bacteria that the virus was instead a bacteria. And I was like, no. Okay, now I can chime in. And now you should heed what I'm saying, because this is my expertise. Let me clarify off gate that if we were dealing with a bacteria, then we have the issue of motility, honey. That means that they move and not just autonomously. You know what I mean? The movement is intuitive. So, honey, that would be a problem. That would be a big old problem. We'd all need to set our asses in the house. You understand what I'm saying? That would be a much bigger problem than the virus that needs to hitch a ride. Okay, so it was completely inappropriate then for YouTube to say, okay, well, let's just shut all this down because we haven't heard any of it before. So therefore, it must be disinformation and not accurate. No, honey, that's not how it works. You show me a YouTuber that's a PhD in my science. No, let's get real specific, honey. Look into my eyes. Because there are very few of us wetland scientists, number one. We already know that 2% of America, 2,600,000 or so of the 131 million people in this country even hold a PhD. Now, let's get more specific, honey, because we're going to pull out some stats, okay? Let's pull out the stats, okay? Then out of that number, honey, because most of those PhDs are in social sciences and humanities, not in the physical hard sciences. You see what I'm saying? So then there's even a lesser percentage that have PhDs in hard sciences like myself. Okay. All right. Okay. So you show me a YouTuber. Excuse me. Let me be more accurate. You show me someone who works for YouTube that handles the vetting of video content, that has my expertise, then we can talk, YouTube. Okay, then we can talk. Then you can put a warning and whatever you think would be appropriate. But even then, it wouldn't be appropriate because the information that I'm sharing is accurate. It's factual. It's vetted. It's peer reviewed. It's not new discovered information that I'm sharing from my own personal research. My own individual research as a PhD, ABD. No, I'm not. I haven't actually done that. I have alluded to, and on occasion, I have recommended that you look at the journal articles, but I have not elaborated yet because I'm an exceptionally responsible scientist, because I know that because I have established this trust with communities, that they trust what I'm saying is accurate. So I'm very, very mindful about putting out information into this, the World Wide Web without, without a proper, what's the word I want to use? Without knowing my audience specifically. Those are the types of papers that you would present and, in a group of academics, and then discuss it, further and have it peer reviewed, because none of my articles have been peer reviewed yet. You have to understand that. Yes, I have written articles, but I have not published yet. And some of you know the reason why, and there's a lot of things going on with my PhD program, but I don't mind disclosing that kind of after the fact, but for the sake of protocol, and not having further impediments to completing my PhD, I'm just reserving, I'm going to be very discreet and not disclosing all those things. But I would love to share with you my findings from my own research, which is somewhat limited because of my response rate was very low. But I would also love to show you or share with you my analysis from the journal articles that I have compared, right? And as it relates to wetlands remediation, my expertise, and addressing viral pandemics. I've told you that, I've shared that with you, but I have not gone into detail because it's not time yet. It's not time for me to share that. And please understand, I know some of you are going to look at this and you're going to say, well, Tigress, if you can help the pandemic, why are you not helping the pandemic now? Be very clear that you wouldn't think it, and you can look it up, but the arena of wetland phytoremediation is so politicized, it is not even funny, because I deal with it. There's not even just crossover, it is core to my study. Some of you have seen the title to my dissertation. It is core to my study. I work toward correcting negative externalities. That means that I work effectually, at least in the mindset of the industry, I am their enemy, especially the industry or the plants, the manufacturer plants. We're talking about industrialization that lend toward pollution, even larger agricultural production units as opposed to the small farmer. A lot of you know that I'm a huge advocate for small farms and self-sufficiency. And there was a stronghold to sustainability environmentally from that aspect. It's very hard to have that on the larger scale with the agricultural units, right? So I am not exactly their favorite scientist coming into the boardroom. So understand that. So I have to be very mindful on how we work this out, and it will be a process. Please understand, it will not be overnight. They won't let it be. And they are, again, those industrial units or companies, right, that don't want to pay for the cost. They don't want to pay to play. That's what correcting negative externalities is about, is that you assess the cost of pollution, which includes the cost of remediating, because sometimes I tell you I don't like using the word clean or kill as it relates to viruses and the hard science, because it can be misleading, right? Those terms are used for marketing so that they communicate well to the masses, but they don't actually mean what they mean in the real academic aspect of the science, okay? So it's going to be a process. That's what I'm telling you. And you please allow me to do what I'm doing, because I've been in it and I know that it is an extremely sensitive topic. And I am using my economics degree and my soon law degree to effectually massage that process. And please don't get, I'm using these terms academically, because you know that I despise misogyny, but I'm using this, I'll use another lay term, to finesse the process of the transformation I intend to inspire, right? So trust and believe, I want to share all the information that I have now, but it's just premature. And to be quite honest, even when I share it, it's not going to be something that can be implemented overnight, not even probably maybe over the course of a year. That would be very ambitious, especially considering all. But I'm hopeful that, you know, that it is feasible, because a lot more of the, you know, the industrial companies are realizing that they are the impact that is of concern, right? Like the variant of concern for the virus, right? They are they are of concern. They are the variant of concern. Yeah, so maybe they will, you know, jump on, you know, the bandwagon much quicker. I'm not really sure. Okay, so here we go. We're at 1:16. I'm going to stop at 2:00. These are the things that I have to share with you. I want to start with number one. Okay, so this was inspired by seeing post, or rather the frame. So you know how Facebook allows you to create a frame around your profile pic, right? And I think that's really cool. Like, so if you're, you know, you are advocating for some fundraiser or awareness or whatever, you know, you put it in the frame and give it a little something. I even saw one that I absolutely loved and I used. I don't know if you all saw it on my Facebook profile. It was in honor of Dudley High School graduates, alumni, and you know, I am an exceptionally proud alumni of Dudley High School in Greensboro, North Carolina. Go blue, blue, gold, right? Go Panthers, yeah. So I used that, but what I saw a couple of days ago said, you know, get vaccinated, you know, save lives. And I was like, okay. So, you know, on the surface, no biggie. But we're going to go back to what I started saying in the beginning of this video. Here's the deal, Phil, okay? I'm a scientist with expertise, holistic medicine, but I don't have a license in traditional medicine. So I'm very mindful with how far I go into giving recommendations to people who want my advisement on whatever medical condition they're experiencing. Because I'm not licensed. It's irresponsible. It's irresponsible for me to do that, because I know two things as a scientist. I know two things as a human. You should have learned these things as well. People lie, and if they don't lie, they withhold information. And not so much as that they withhold it unethically, but they don't share everything that you need to know. They don't even do it with doctors. Doctors know this too, right? At least with the doctor can actually examine. So if they lie, there are things that they can't lie about. They will be exposed through the examination process, right? Through blood tests, through CT scan, through x-rays, right? I don't have an x-ray machine in my home. I don't intend to. I rely upon my specialist for that process. Trusted specialist for that process, because they are licensed. And again, like I said, the trusted ones, you don't, because there are some bad physicians out there, unfortunately. And you need to rely upon those who have shown you what my definition of trust, right? They've shown you that they are trustworthy, right? So if I don't make the recommendations, okay, now I'm going to get a little sarcastic on you because I know that you all speak sarcasm fluently, okay? So if I don't give you the recommendations, then how in the hell, if you don't even drink your water regularly throughout the day, you don't take any type of vitamin supplements, and you don't care about your physical health, you don't exercise, you don't eat well, you don't. And so you think you qualify to give someone medical recommendations, medical advice? And you see, at the core of it, a vaccine is a medical procedure. It may not be on the major end of medical procedures, but it still is governed by the medical world, right? So it's one thing if you're just saying, well, I don't think you should get the vaccination because it's not fully FDA approved. I don't think you should get the vaccination because I just am not comfortable. I want to see more scientific findings, especially as it relates to the new viral protein cloning and da-da-da-da. At least that is pretty objective. That's an objective statement. But to tell someone to get the vaccine, you need to get the vaccine because you're saving lives. Okay, well, there are individuals that have received the vaccine and they did so specifically because of either peer pressure or their family giving them ultimatums. Well, you can't see us unless you get the vaccine, da-da-da-da-da, right? And we've heard so many stories. I've met individuals, they've shared the information with me, so I know this firsthand, okay? And we see it in the news. Some of them have passed away. Too many have passed away. And often because they had an underlying condition that was undiagnosed and thereby untreated, right? This is why I share with you that you should remove that, you should remove the frame, remove all of your campaigns about getting the vaccine because you don't qualify. This is one of those things where if you don't have the expertise, you should just sit this one out. Now, if you instead are saying, hey, I think that, we got the vaccine and I think you should get it, but you've seen the incidences where, it doesn't work for everybody. So I suggest you go see your doctor. Boom. That to me is perfection. Perfection. In our particular case, I'm like the princess and the pea. My doctors know this. I'm allergic to a lot of things that a lot of people can take and have no reaction whatsoever. And this is admittedly, because I am holistic, because I've been able to manage my whole health generally holistically. So my body rejects, it effectually rejects any of the Western medicine. Now, there are Western medicines, of course, that I can still take, of course, without question. But because it's not my first go-to, my body's like, okay, well, we just need some cumin. We need some more vitamin D. We need some ashwaganda. We need some zinc. Whereas you all, oh, I need some penicillin. I need some amoxicillin. I need a prednisone now. God bless prednisone, honey. God bless prednisone. But and by the way, just so you're fully aware, there are natural steroids. I'll add 2 or 3 of them in the comments, okay? But ashwaganda is one of them, okay? I consider zinc also, but it is not technically a steroid, okay? All right, so when you're thinking about heavy minerals or whatever, it's more in that genre, okay? So this is why I'm saying to you that it is inappropriate for lay people, general public, all y'all, to make these recommendations. Oh, you need to get the vaccine. You shouldn't be fighting with anybody in the streets. Why you need to get the vaccine? Because no, honey. The truth of the matter is, this recommendation needs to come from someone that has examined that person, and preferably who already has a long-standing relationship with this person medically, knows their medical history, knows whether or not there is a likelihood that they will experience vaccine injury, and can properly make that recommendation for them. But you also see that doctors, and I know there's a catch-22 with this, and I'll acknowledge it. Some doctors are refraining from making the recommendation that you get the vaccine. Why? Because now we're talking about legalities. Because the FDA has not fully approved the vaccine, there are issues, this indemnification issue, this liability, who would be liable, this malpractice, potentiality, right? It is of concern. And so some of your doctors, even of course, just so you're aware. So we've had the conversation, my allergist and I have had the conversation, and it really went, we can speak with eye contact alone. And so we made that decision very quickly without any words, okay? And it was very clear he had no intentions of making any recommendations. The point I'm making here is that be mindful of staying in your lane. Stay in your lane, honey. Stay in your lane. I'm not a mechanic. I don't go around listening to cars and say, you know what? You need to, and I should, because there's some cars, they be riding around here and they got black smoke coming out. I should just beep, 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 pull them over, beep, 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 get in front of them, slow down, beep, 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 pull it over, right? Like, I recommend that you get your car fixed. And I think that it is the damn black smoke coming out. But that's the point that I'm making. I'm being silly here. But as jovial as it is a direct relationship between that. The correlation is clear. Don't friends, just stop. Because there are a lot of people, and I've done the math, literally. So they've said, the information being promulgated right now is that about 40-some%, 50-some% of the population has been vaccinated, right? Mostly I hear 40%, somewhere around that lines, right? And doing the math, because we know there's 131 million documented people, right, here in the United States. So that means about 70%, about 70 million have it, about 80 million, and I can count. So let's do that again. Boom. Lord have mercy, about 70 million have it, 50 million or so, 60, thereabouts, because I'm, doing the math loosely, have not received the vaccine. And when I use the statistics regarding obesity, the stats show that about 80 million people of the United States population suffer from obesity or other major chronic illnesses, right? So maybe if we look at it that way, maybe that's why we see the slow crawl for the vaccinations. Maybe it has been recommended to some of them that they should not get it. And I don't know those answers, because that would take a lot more in-depth research to determine. But just taking a quick, surface look at it, it doesn't seem all that alarming. You get what I'm saying? So we would be the individuals who might suffer vaccine injury, especially my son. And so that's why we're being mindful about how we, move into this process. And that's why I suggested, if, I told you, consider the aspects of each one of the vaccinations that are available, and considering and comparing those aspects. I told you that I would take the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. None of these companies have proven themselves holistically ethical and holistically trustworthy. So we got to check that off. If you're saying to yourself, I want to take the vaccine, I just need to decide which vaccine it is. If you're already decided, then honey, over here, if this works for you the same way for me, it would be the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Because introducing anything foreign into my body has a greater likelihood of vaccine injury or just medical injury, having a medical allergy, or drug allergy is what it's more specifically called, right? So then I would much rather have the cold virus or flu virus be the vehicle, that delivers, some message to my body to produce antibodies, right? Write the code that produces antibodies to fight COVID. That would be the better way for us. If that sounds like a party for you, then there you have it, okay? But still yet, and I'll continue to say it and 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 post it and post it. You need to know your health status first. So don't feel any peer pressure from, and especially because Facebook, y'all are very, very easily influenced. And if not easily, you are gradually, increasingly influenced by things that are posted on Facebook. I see it all the time. You're like, oh, well, I'm concerned because I saw this on Facebook and I don't give a shit about what is appearing on. Okay. So, but you all are easily influenced. So when I saw this, I was like, and then I know this individual has reasonable influence over their friends. Because this person is very reasonably. I've not had any reason to not trust this person. And that being said, then, when you have this spokesperson, quote unquote, because that's what people are effectively becoming, is the spokesperson for the vaccination campaigns. You don't qualify. Like you shouldn't. There's so many legalities here right now. Now, of course, I can't imagine where the courts are going to kind of stick it to you and say, hey, da, 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 da. But I can say that this person, and I will say this person does have a degree that, well, I'll just say it because I'm not trying to be mean. I'm not intending to be mean, but this person has a Juris Doctorate, to my knowledge. I don't know if they can still practice, if they still have a license, but they are qualified to be a licensed attorney. They're qualified to take the bar exam. I would imagine, I don't know if anything has disqualify them in that regard. I don't know. I can't imagine what would be the case, because I know this person to be exceptionally upstanding and a wonderful person. Okay. And being a wonderful person does not qualify you to make medical recommendations. You get what I'm saying? Please tell me y'all get what I'm saying. Okay. All right. So that's number one. And I had to elaborate on that because it's getting out of hand. And so people are looking at you, oh, well, you have a Juris Doctor, or, oh, you're a very nice person. Oh, you've held office. You're good people in the community. So I trust what you say. No, honey. They can't see in your body. They don't have a license. They don't know if you have underlying conditions, and you are not sharing with them everything that you experience medically, either intentionally or unintentionally. And I say that because sometimes the patient or the person fails to share very expressly relevant information to their doctor or their holistic caregiver that is necessary to make proper recommendations so that they do not experience a vaccine injury, or they do not experience a drug allergy, or they do not experience some inflammatory response to the treatment that the doctor or the holistic caregiver has prescribed. And it's not the doctor's fault because they don't know. It's not being shared with them. And again, it may be intentionally done. It's not so much as that someone's like, oh, I intentionally did not share this information with my doctor. Some people think it's not even that relevant. Some people think not telling the doctor that they take Tylenol. I pop an aspirin every day just because. Who told you to do it? I decided to do it. I just decided to do it. And you don't tell your doctor that. And then he prescribes something, and then you have this, this contraindication or for the nomenclature. Basically, that is just like two drugs that don't play well together, right? Let me give you that. Hold on. Because I know some of this stuff. Let me share the screen, because we're gonna go to the what's the name in a second here. I don't know what I have pulled up. You'll figure it out in a second. Okay, let's see. See that? Contraindications. All right, this contraindication then is a symptom or condition that makes a treatment risky, such as taking certain other medications at the same time. Drugs and conditions that are contraindicated for a medication are listed on its label and reeled off at high speed in TV ads, right? And we know those, right? Talk to your doctor, consult your doctor. This medication can cause, nausea, back pain, a tingling in your fingers. If you experience any of these things, please consult your doctor. Okay, so if you have all those things going on, then why in the hell would it be reasonable for lay people to join in as self-purported spokesmen and women for getting the vaccine? It's dangerous. We're walking a very, very dangerous line here. Very, very dangerous, okay? Especially when we're talking about a vaccine that has not been fully FDA approved. In President Biden's the most recent one that I saw, he seemed to be angered by the journalist asking him, well, how much longer for the FDA to approve it? And that was inappropriate for him to be angered by that question, like almost like he didn't want that information out there. Like, maybe I can understand in one regard if he was like, okay, I'm angered because I don't want you to give the public the impression that because that vaccine is not fully approved and it's not safe. I guess I can generally understand that, but it's still yet a valid question because safety is at issue. People. Okay, so, and you see that, and I just did this in real time. I have not searched this, and you see that it is already coming up in the searches, contraindications to COVID vaccine. And I know some of you are relying upon the internet to self-treat right now. I know you are. I've said that from the beginning. I said, I suspect that a lot of you are self-diagnosing and you are self-treating at home. And a lot of you are underqualified to do that, if not completely unqualified to do that. Now, some of you have a wealth of background in your family's holistic care practices. So you know, the likelihood is that you'll do a decent job. You might have some symptoms that arise that are manageable, but not life-threatening or whatever. Now, I, again, do not recommend that you go this route. And I'd always say it, if I am guru holistic medicine person, I drink my water regularly. I do all the things, scientists at my level, and I still rely on the expertise of my specialist, then why shouldn't you? And again, trusted specialists. And believe me, I've gone through intentionally, I've vetted, and you can ask some of the previous physicians, because I put them through the ringer, as you should. You need to ask questions. You need to determine if they are a good fit for you and your family. I've done it. I can give you the list of my recommendations of who not to go to. No, I'm just joking. Sometimes physicians work, just like, cars and everything else in the world, right? Some things work for some people, some things don't. We're thankfully with the physicians that we need to be with now. But that was a process. So please stop making recommendations. Take those frames down. You are not a doctor. The peer pressure is not serving any of us well. Recommend instead that they go see a doctor. And I was going to try to create a frame. I might try to create one here after I get off the phone. Offline. But I believe I have to do it from my personal page, and then maybe I'll be able to add it to my profile picture on this political campaign page, because I couldn't figure out how to do it directly from my business page, because those are business pages technically or whatever. All right, so anywho, here's the other deal. I was researching, and I told you the African findings for the Johnson & Johnson vaccine show increased immunity antibody. Let me see. I'm just trying to put in so that I can get directly to it. Let me see if I can get to it. Yeah, positive new data. Yeah. All right, and this is directly from Johnson & Johnson, so it's reputable. And of course, they are making recommendations from their research facilities, okay? All right. Let me go live here. We'll go bigger. Okay. All right, Johnson & Johnson, this was released on July 1st. Today announced data that demonstrated its single-shot COVID-19 vaccine generated strong, persistent activity against the rapidly spreading Delta variant and other highly prevalent SARS, right? So that's just acute respiratory, right? Viral infections. So they're referring to all the viral variants. I'm going to assume, I won't surmise, I'm going to surmise, let's say I'll surmise that they're referring to all of the VOCs, the variants of concerns. Because remember, there's lots of mutations. That's what a virus does. It constantly does that, right? Okay. Let's see, because an assumption would be greater than a surmise, but I'm going to surmise that's what they're talking about. And at this point, we don't need all, well, the specific information would be wonderful. I'll see about trying to find an article that specifies which VOCs it actually covers, and then I'll share that with you later. All right, let's keep reading. In addition, the data showed that the durability of the immune response lasted through at least 8 months, the length of time evaluated to date. The two preprint study summaries have been submitted today to Riskiv. Never heard of them. That's interesting. And I don't have it doesn't give you the option to click on that. We should look into that. That's very interesting. All right, here's in quotes. Today's newly announced studies reinforce the ability of the Johnson & Johnson COVID-19 vaccine to help protect the health of people globally, said Paul Stoffels, MD, Vice Chairman of the Executive Committee and Chief Scientific Officer at Johnson & Johnson. We believe that our vaccine offers durable protection against COVID-19 and elicits neutralizing activity against the Delta variant. What did I tell you? And I believe that's why YouTube went back in and made it a warning, because this is around the same time that I received, well, I didn't actually receive notification. I happened to be managing my YouTube account and noticed that the violation had turned to a warning. Now, remember, I told you that their response was changing it from violation to warning. So it was effectively a non-responsive, you know what I mean? Because it wasn't a direct response. So that's why I said it was passive aggressive or evasive at best. But this is around the time that it was done, right? Because it's been about a month. And I sent another letter letting them know, no, a warning still is not, warning still is not sufficient, boo-boos. We need you to take that off altogether because I'm a scientist and it's kind of like my thing and it's not your thing and you don't qualify. So yeah, that part. All right. And this is the information that I shared with you. This is the information that I shared even with my cousin. My cousin had posted that he was getting the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. I didn't recommend it to him. Now, he may have seen my videos. I'm not really sure. We didn't discuss that. I'm not sure if he made that decision on his own. Like, I'm going to get Johnson & Johnson after considering them all, or if he used some of the information that I shared in my posts and in my videos on this topic, right? And he's a very smart man. So he could have done it on his own, you know, because at the end of the day, it really is, I'm not trying to be funny. Yes, science is hard. It is, but this part is kind of commonsensical, people. Come on, it's commonsensical. We know if you've all been saying it for years, to build your immunity, you should do it naturally. That's the best way to do it. Well, if that's the way, honey, if that's what you know, then how all of a sudden did it change now? Did it change because, well, maybe. Did it change because of the fear of this pandemic? Well, there have been pandemics before. There are other pandemics that are going on right now simultaneously. Right now, okay? Viruses are every fucking where. They're everywhere, okay? So as are bacteria, okay? They're everywhere, honey. They're everywhere. And they're in us at any given time and all throughout the merry day. And that is not to scare you. That is to reset expectations, to not be driven by extreme behavior, impulsive behavior. I think all scientists, you know, who are ethical and, you know, and medical doctors right now, we all feel the same, you know, that are, you know, on the same, you know, have the same cognitive ability, right? We're like, stop adding to our words and just listen to what I just said and don't be an extreme ass. Oh, it's so hard. Lord have mercy when it's not hard at all. All right. So, but this is what I said. I told you your body needs to write the code to produce the antibodies. That's the best way. to build and strengthen your immunity. There's no other better way. There's a term that a professor, one of my former professors on Auntie's campus, has coined. It's called biomimicry. Okay. And, you know, there are other terms that effectually mean the same thing prior to this, but, and I take no issue with the term. I take no issue with the term, and you'll see why. Because you need to understand that life is first. Life is the great master. Excuse me. If you want to associate that, you know, because I don't want to negate your religion, it would then be equal to, you know, if you believe God is life, or, you know, so then that would be first. You see what I'm saying? So biology is smarter than us, smarter than scientists, smarter than doctors. Yep, even the astrophysicists as well. much smarter. And even he will tell you that. And you know who I'm referring to, my favorite scientist, one of my favorite scientists, Neil deGrasse Tyson, right? He'll tell you as well, like, there's still stuff we don't know. And oh my gosh, that's what's so intriguing for us. That's what's so fun to, you know, and not to refer to this lightheartedly, but there, you know, we want to, further discovery in our respective fields for this very purpose, to help, to manage, to, you know, to implement sustainable living. Now, of course, I will always say that you know, there's a difference between, you know, your ethical scientists and your not so ethical scientists, and the same for doctors. And the difference is ego. Does your doctor have a respect, or does the scientist have a respect for life? And then I always go back to that scene in Jurassic Park, which is so much like my mantra as a scientist. Jeff Goldblum, when the scientists are like, well, I can't believe that all the dinosaurs are now terrorizing us and killing us and eating us. Why didn't they just stay in their cages? And he's like, life will find a way. And more specifically, he was referring to the fact that the scientists said that, oh, well, we're just giving them male DNA. But you gave them amphibian DNA. You gave them frog DNA. And so they can morph, right? They can morph their gender. Life always finds a way. Okay. So, yeah. All right, let's keep reading so that you see what I'm talking about specifically in Africa. Where are we at? Come on down. But yeah, so you see where he's made it very clear and plain. This adds to the robust body of clinical data supporting our single shot vaccine's ability to protect against multiple variants of concern. And we have our answer. So I don't even need to look it up. We have our answer. Boom. And so you need to follow this. We need to follow these subsequent studies that they will have, because they are including explicit consideration for the single shot vaccine's ability to protect against multiple variants of concern. It's not a matter of Tigress McDaniel being right. It's a matter of me being properly trained, and I'm an expert at this point. I don't play with colored pencils. I actually don't own any. I don't play with crayons as a scientist. We don't finger paint. We actually, okay. All right. My work entailed viable. Yeah, okay. All right. Okay, so let's keep reading. Current data for the 8 months studied so far show that the single shot Johnson & Johnson COVID-19 vaccine generates a strong neutralizing antibody response that does not wane. Rather, we observe an improvement over time. In addition, we observe a persistent and particularly robust, durable cellular immune response, again, from PhD and MD. With each new data set, we build on our solid foundation of evidence that our single shot COVID-19 vaccine plays a critical role in ending the pandemic, which continues to evolve. What did I tell you? It will continue to evolve and pose new challenges to global health. Boom and boom. He said exactly what I just said. I said they're going to continue to have more studies, more data sets. We need to follow this chain. Okay. The regions of, the vaccine was consistently effective across all regions studied globally, including in South Africa and Brazil, where there was a high prevalence of rapidly emerging beta and zeta variants during the study period. See this? So it was ongoing. It was in real time. They were able to, really get good data sets, which is awesome. And showing that it is 85% effective against severe critical disease and demonstrated protection against hospitalization and death, okay? So again, this is not Tigress recommending the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, even though I qualify, okay? In one regard, I qualify. I have instead, or I could at the very least very confidently tell you, like I have, this is what I would get. And you know that I have the greater likelihood of vaccine injury, but this is what I would get if I absolutely had no other choices. If I didn't have other circumstances like my son's condition, okay, and my mom. And my mom is fine, for those of you who are like, oh, is she okay? No, she's good to go. And she's good to go for a reason. I'll let you read into that. Exactly what I intend, right? She's good to go. Her daughter's a doctoral level scientist. Okay, so yeah, this is really good. I'm going to we're gonna post this. And even though this is not me recommending Johnson & Johnson, this is me more specifically, not recommending as a licensed medical professional, and still yet saying, even with this information, please go see your trusted physician. Please go see your trusted physician. Please. Okay. And so I have posted that. I wish I could pin 2 posts, but I'm going to leave that there. Actually, let me add this excerpt so that you see, because that's important too. Let's add the excerpt. Ooh, too much. And it even talks about storage and distribution. Let's look at that really quickly, because that's important too. All right, let me edit this. Okay. And put that there, because that's important. It's very, very, very important. Let's see. What's that? I'm looking to make sure that oh, okay. So that's the title. Let's see. Let me just add a line. That'll kind of give some type of clarity there. I hope. Maybe I'll take it out and let you all read it. I'll put it like that. Hopefully it communicates well. Because even if I put it in all caps, it doesn't necessarily communicate title. All right, so let me save that. All right, so we have that. We've covered two of the matters I said we would. Let me also show you this. Of course, there are lots of schools that are now petitioning to require the mask. It is still irresponsible. Still, it was irresponsible. I'm going to say it one more time. Still irresponsible for states to lift mask mandates, for Dr. Fauci to lift the mask mandate. And again, for the reasons that I have shared with you before. PPE, OSHA are all driven by behavioral psychology. I told you this from the beginning. And you see the psychology now is just as, and we can use like anecdotal situations, right? So you say, when you tell your child to not do something and you're not consistent, and then you have a lapse in judgment, or for whatever reason, you tell them, okay, you can go ahead and do the thing that you have disciplined them against doing, right? So they do the thing. And then you realize, no, they shouldn't be doing the thing. So then you go back and you tell them, you need to be doing the thing. How effective does that turn out? How effective is that mode of discipline? It's not going to be very effective at all. And that's what's going on here now. You have literally adults who are throwing temper tantrums because they have to put a mask back on, and they feel that because they're vaccinated, that, somehow they have become immortal and they are now metahumans, and they can't ever contract the virus nor spread it. And that is a lie from the pits of hell, okay? If hell exists, I don't know. I don't subscribe to that. Let's hope that if there is heaven, that there is no hell. That's what I hope for us all. Okay, so, yeah. But you see that that's what's going on. All right, what's the other thing I said? Let's see here. Yep, I talked about the general public making recommendations for vaccines, findings in Africa, boom, and the recent surge. The recent surge, let's be very clear about this. You keep seeing, and we can unshare now. All right, so we keep seeing that it's unvaccinated. We keep hearing unvaccinated people need to get vaccines because that's what will help us, with the pandemic, and that's what will help not spread the virus. Okay. Indeed, truthfully, there are some who are not vaccinated who are spreading not only the base virus, but the variants as well, right? Okay. And remember the mutation, because I don't know if some of you think that this is how it happens. I don't know if you think that the virus jumps out of the body, said, okay, like in that movie with Denzel Washington, the spirit jumps from body to body. So the virus just jumps, because viruses have no motility, but I don't know what it is that you think, but okay, so the virus jumps out. And then it goes into like a sauna, you know what I mean? It goes into the sauna and it says, okay, well, I'm going to now morph, and then I'm going to jump back in. And, no, it happens. It happens in the ecosystem, right? The ecosystem is your body. Some of you all don't think of your bodies as an ecosystem. There are many variations of ecosystems, all right? So it happens at this kind of micro cellular level, right? And so, yes, those who are unvaccinated can contract the virus, have no symptoms, which is asymptomatic, right? Infection, right? And spread it to others unintentionally, right? Because of course, if they don't know that they have it, then they don't know that they're spreading it, right? But then there's also a group of people who are unvaccinated. They know there's a likelihood that they have contracted the virus. They don't care, and they're going about spreading it to others. And they may not be doing it maliciously, but they're definitely doing it negligently. And what's the difference, Tigress? What are you talking about? So that's a legal term, right? So maliciously would be like they intended, they have a malignant heart, they have, like they're intentionally wanting to do harm to others, right? And then there's the others who they just don't think they're really doing any harm to others, not that big of a deal. So that's negligence, right? They're just not making good decisions, right? But they're not so much as doing it with this criminal mind, this criminal intent to harm others, right? To give them the COVID. I'm going to give them the COVID, right? All right. So those are three groups, right? But who they fail to highlight are those who are vaccinated, who very likely are contracting, and she may call back, but who are very likely contracting the virus, and they are not having the major symptoms that would come along with it, or the symptoms that would present more prominently for those, had they not gotten a vaccine, right? And those individuals are also spreading it because they will not wear their mask. Now, that's not all of them, because there are some vaccinated people who actually understand how science works. And so when they are around other people or in close proximity, right? Or around other people, they go into the stores, they wear their mask because they understand science. It's pretty straightforward, I'm telling you, okay? Especially this part of science is pretty straightforward, okay? You don't want to have to take any of my exams, but this exam, I think everybody can pass if you just hear me out here. All right, so here's the deal, Phil. Those individuals are just as great of a population as the unvaccinated group, or three groups that I described, right? So you have one person who's unvaccinated and they don't know they have the virus, they're asymptomatic, right? So they could be possibly, spreading that, right? Then you have the unvaccinated who is, those are the divergents, right? And insurgents, right? They refuse to get the vaccine. They have had symptoms of COVID and feel very likely that they've had it, maybe even had tests and know that they have it, but intend to criminally spread the vaccine. And please understand that is an actionable crime. So those of you who think you're out there and you're doing that and you're like, I'm not going to get caught, there are people, you can be prosecuted, just so you're aware. All right, then they have the other group and they're like, we're not vaccinated, but oh my God, you see the clouds? The clouds are so pretty. And so they're not intentionally spreading the virus, but they are negligently spreading the virus, right? And then you have the group who are vaccinated, and they think that the vaccination now makes them immortal and a metahuman, and that somehow they cannot spread the virus that is still in their body because it doesn't just disappear. It doesn't see the vaccine and then explode. The vaccine doesn't do its thing. And then the virus, says, oh, you know what? I'm out. I'm gonna go to another universe. I'm gonna go to the multiverse. It doesn't turn into, it doesn't do the things like we see in the Netflix series Flash. That's not what happens, right? So it's in them, and then they're like, I'm metahuman. I am Captain Marvel, so I can walk around and I'm good. And they're going around in the stores and, you know, restaurants and breathing on the server and getting their beer and talking and spitting projectile and thinking, oh, but I'm vaccinated. I got 2 shots. I've heard them so many times. This is very interesting. Very, very, very interesting dynamic. That population is very, very interesting. Okay. And so they are just as much as the other 3 groups of the unvaccinated, they're spreading it and very likely at the same rate. And no one can say to what specific rate each one of these groups is spreading it because it hasn't been studied. It hasn't been researched. And it would be somewhat difficult to research because of the nature of the ego, the psychology behind the individuals in these various groups that I've already kind of, you know, demonstrated. I've depicted it for you. They probably would not be forthtelling. They wouldn't be honest, right? If we elicited their responses to a survey. Yeah, so honey, just know that the mask mandate should not have been lifted. It should not have been lifted. We can't go in the past. So everybody needs to stop arguing. All these people are like, I predicted it. You didn't predict nothing. There were scientists who told you many years ago, myself included, excuse me, I said many years ago, because I remember I work in other realms where PPE is very necessary. And I've had these conversations and it just seems to, for some people, it goes in one area and out the other. And then when they lose a limb, or they end up with pneumonia, right? Pneumonitis, which is pneumonia, or it presents like pneumonia, but it's induced by some chemical exposure, right? Okay, so, and I've experienced pneumonitis, and not intentionally, and it's not fun. The irony, it was from a home and where I was living, and the landlord decided to treat an apartment below us without telling us with this specific chemical. And, you know, and then we had, of course, an allergic reaction to that. But the point that I'm making is that, yeah, everybody needs to keep on their mask around others, including the vaccinated people, because they're spreading the virus. Yeah, if you've taken the vaccine, the symptoms may be significantly reduced if you have symptoms at all. But you see, that doesn't mean that you also spread with the virus, the vaccine. Okay. So for those of you who don't understand that, like I hope that you watch this and you process the fact that you don't share the virus and the vaccine when you don't wear your mask. You just spread the virus. You see what I'm saying? So for those who are unvaccinated, who cannot get vaccinated, you're the problem. You're the selfish one. And I know that right now, you know, the world is screaming, the vaccinated world is screaming, all of you unvaccinated people are so selfish. You're not saving lives, but you're forgetting express facts. Remember, I've covered them. Some people cannot receive the vaccine due to the great likelihood of vaccine injury. Some will not receive it because of religious preferences, and that is their preference. And the irony is that those individuals, most of them, they wear their mask everywhere. And I still see a lot of them, they wear gloves and masks and everything. They're the most efficiently driven folk as it relates to the pandemic. They're following all of the safety procedures, even when everyone else around them is not. So they're not our problem. You see, they're not the problem at all. And then there are those who just don't want to get the vaccine because they don't trust, the government, or, it might be driven by conspiracy theories, or it might be driven by app knowledge. They're just like, what? I don't have sufficient information, but most of those individuals that I have observed, they're also wearing their mask everywhere. In fact, they post it online all the time. Those are the individuals like, I'm wearing my mask forever, and gloves. So again, those individuals they're not an issue. So that's the disinformation, friends. Okay. So I hope I have cleared it all up for you. It's Sunday, so I'm going to go on and get on off of this YouTube live and go on out here and enjoy the rest of my Sunday. It's time for a salad. It's time for something from McAllister's. I love McAllister's. Anyway, so I hope that this information has been exactly what the affirmation in the beginning of my video entails. I am Tigress Sydney Acute McDaniel, your girl, your host, kind of your neighborhood scientist. People call themselves your neighborhood lawyer, your favorite astrophysicist, your personal astrophysicist. I don't know if I want to call myself your personal scientist. Y'all ain't living right. Some of y'all ain't living right. I don't want to be responsible for you. There's a fiduciary duty that comes along with my title, honey. Honey, I don't know if I want that relationship. Y'all got to get it together first. But nonetheless, again, Tigress Sydney Acute McDaniel, and this has been another live session of Evolve Weekly. Get on out there and not get on out there without your damn mask on. You see what I'm saying? Put your mask on. Put your mask on. Put your mask on. Put your mask on. And keep it on until you see me take it off all day. See you next week. Bye.